Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the East Carolina Law Group. You're probably sitting back wondering why I am wearing this absurdly scary mask. Well, there's a simple reason for that. We're going to talk about one of the scariest things you may ever have to go through in your life, and one of the scariest things your children may ever have to go through or be exposed to, and that's getting a divorce. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is ridiculous. And in many ways, a lot of the reasons that come through my door are equally as ridiculous as somebody wearing this kind of a mask to a legal consultation. And really, I want everybody who's watching this to understand exactly how scary telling your children, Mommy and Daddy are getting divorced, really is to them. Hopefully you can hear me okay, because I'm kind of muffled in this thing, and it's not as comfortable as it looks. Well, frankly, I'm about to take this stupid thing off. But either way, I want you to see, I want to get the shock effect. I want everybody to look at this. It is important to understand that a divorce is a very serious matter. And the decision to get a divorce and to basically break up your family is one that should not be taken lightly. I am going to reiterate something I've said a lot, and that is I have almost never, except for on one occasion, ever seen what I would consider to be a selfless or a good divorce. It almost never happens. I want you to also understand exactly what the effect on your children is going to be. When you decide to pull that ripcord and say, I'm out, my marriage is over, not only are you doing something that affects you, but you're doing something that has a cascading and a ripple effect throughout your family. And if we look back over history at the devastation that divorces cause to the various children that are involved, and the things that really plague us as a society, many of them stem from the family and the broken family. So before you go out and make the decision to divorce, split up, separate, end your marriage with your spouse, simply because you're not happy, let's think beyond ourselves for just a minute. Before you go out going on a date with somebody else, even though you're married, or jumping on that social media website to go hunt for something, other than your spouse, think about it. What are you doing to your family? What is the ripple effect from that going to be? What is the cascading effect? And if you want to be as plain and cold and superficial as possible, how much is it worth to you? Because divorces are not cheap. I don't know any attorneys around here who do divorces on a cheap level. Very few attorneys do anything on a flat fee for a divorce. They're almost always nasty. For lack of better words, there's no such thing as a good divorce, and your children are caught in the middle. One thing I always tell folks is counseling is insanely cheaper than a divorce is, and frankly, if you both put in the effort, it can be very effective. So I want to urge everybody in there to understand that when you go through that process, your children are affected, your families are affected, not just the immediate family, not just the husband and the wife, but everybody's affected. Parents, siblings, uncles, aunts, everybody who looked on you on that day when you swore you were going to love each other for the rest of your life, and then you decided to pull the cord. Everybody who looked on that day and said, this is a wonderful, beautiful couple, you are basically single-handedly putting the kibosh on that. You are saying to everybody, you know what, to hell with whatever it is you believe we had. We don't have it. I'm going to do what I want to do. Get over yourself. Marriage, life is not about perpetual happiness. If that is exactly what you think it's going to be, you're in for a rude awakening. Happiness comes in small doses. It's a 20-mile Harley ride. It's a Alice Cooper concert. It's a wonderful Christmas with your family. And then immediately after, everybody gets drunk and gets into a fight. That may not be the happy part, but happiness comes in small doses. There's a big difference between happiness and joy. Only way you can find joy is through God, by whatever name you call him. But joy is found through God. Happiness comes in small doses. Don't ever just destroy your marriage or destroy your family on the basis of I'm not happy, because if there's a problem there, if that's what you're doing it on, you got some problems. Like I said, work together. You fell in love with each other for a reason. Get back together, reconnect, work hard, and I'm going to tell you there is intrinsic value in remembering that one of the best ways to keep your marriage going, keep your marriage fresh is go on dates with each other.
rekindle and reassess what it is you love about each other. So I'm going to tell you about a couple of pitfalls that we see so often in practice and family practice as to what causes many of these divorces. Number one, it's this weird belief, and it stems out of the sexual revolution of the 60s and things, is that marriage is an equal partnership. Stow that crap right now. It doesn't exist. Anybody who's been married more than 10 years and is still in love with their spouse knows that marriage is not an equal partnership. It's not a he said, she said, because when you reduce your marriage to the concept of the equal partnership, it becomes a series of checks and balances and points keeping, and you're never going to come out even. It doesn't happen. It's about balance. When one spouse has to spend 12, 13 hours at work, the other spouse has to spend more time at home to make sure the homestead is kept. When those things go out of balance, we see problems. That's where the communication issues start. Second thing is children. Children are very important, and every child is a blessing no matter how you got there. But the reality of it is children are stressful, and then there's a lot of responsibility that comes. Don't neglect your marriage for the sake of the children. I see this a lot that usually comes from the moms that say, well, I have to raise my child. I've got to make these commitments to my child. Well, those things are important, but you can't make them at the sacrifice of your spouse, because it wasn't just you that created that child. You got to balance it. So when we see the moms that just devote 110%, which is more than they have, to the child, they're neglecting the spouse, and then the spouse begins to wander, whether that wandering is romantic or that wandering is in communication. It's very important to remember that marriage is not about equality, it's about balance. And then lastly, it comes down to money. That's one of the most common reasons we see divorce around here, is money. And it's not money as in you're hiding money from me or anything like that. It's usually money, it's usually financial stress. And that can come along with our first example, where you have one spouse in the workplace 12, 13, 14 hours a day, and the other spouse is not working, but they're spending. They're sitting at home and they're bored, so they're shopping on Amazon. That can lead to problems. Or they're out gambling. We see that too. Please, whatever you do, make sure you all communicate. Do not start parsing out and splitting up your money, because that's the first step towards getting divorced, towards the acknowledgement that you're separate entities. Do not live autonomously. Live collectively as one. Work together, and don't hide anything from each other. Be open, honest, and transparent. And then that last piece I'm going to talk about is just real briefly. This is something that came up recently, is double standards. Understanding there's double standards, and you just can't live with it. There's always a double standard. Okay? Just live with it. Your spouse may say, hey, I want you to let me know or ask me whenever you go out, but then that spouse doesn't return the favor. You know what? It may not be that important to you or them, but if it is, communicate to them what it is and why that's important to you. Communication is important, and listen, and I mean listen very clearly, because this is something that I've had to take personally. I've had to do more than I've ever had to do before, but it's really helped. It's really helped to remeld my marriage, with my wife. We weren't even in trouble. It's something that every married person needs to take a good hard look at, because just like anything, the more comfortable we get with it, the more we tend to slack off, and that's disingenuous to our spouse. They deserve better. So let's make sure that we help preserve our marriages. Let's not be selfish. Let's not pull the plug over arbitrary and superficial things, and let's be there for one another. Marriage is under attack in this country, whether it's in political terms, or whether it's in legal terms, or just social terms. Let's work hard to preserve our marriage, because our families deserve it, and our children just deserve to grow up knowing both parents and having both parents in the household, and seeing parents that love each other, because in turn they'll grow into healthy relationships as well. So I want to thank you for tuning in, and I hope everybody enjoyed the little mask bit at the very beginning. It was definitely there for shock effect, so everybody go, oh, what is this crazy lawyer doing, putting a mask on his face? And I want everybody to see this is exactly how many of the children that I work with actually see mommy and daddy splitting up. It's a monster in the room. They always want to know if it's their fault, and for any children who may be watching, it's not your fault. And I just have to say, parents who end up getting divorced, 90% of the time or more, it's just a selfish motivation. I'm not happy. I found somebody else. Yada yada, so on and so forth. The list goes on and on. It's a lot easier to pull the plug than it is to work through problems. But a wise man once told me, suffer through the pain and things will get better. And it's absolutely true. The few clients we've seen that have come in that have been able to put the pieces back together are better off for it. So please, 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 if I can urge you to do anything, don't come in and pay me thousands of dollars to dissolve your marriage and split everything up. Work through it with your spouse. You fell in love for a reason. Find that reason, rekindle it, go see your pastor, go to a counselor. It's significantly cheaper than a lawyer. Take care and have a blessed day. Hope to see you around just in passing. Hope you don't end up being a client. Or if you are a client, hopefully we're helping you prevent problems rather than get you out of them. Have a good one. Blessings. Take care. And I'll see you around.